If I had the power to change or add certain elements to DVD, I would. These changes and additions may be fun, controversial, and you may or may not agree with them, but these are overall changes and additions I feel would spice up the game a bit. More showcase. When you play Killer, you barely see what the killer is wearing, because well, when you play Killer it's in first person. But damn, this game needs more showcasing with the outfits. Like when you really think about it, we're spending $10 to $15, maybe $20 for an outfit that we will only see in the menu during a Mori and the intro and outro of the game. I think in minor animations, it should go in third person to showcase the outfit more. Like maybe when you pick someone up, pull someone out of a locker, animations like that. Cause though the outfits in this game are visually beautiful, we're only looking at the killer's hands most of the times and their weapons. Custom matches. DBD's custom match mode feels more like a private match, only because you're really just playing with a group of people you know, rather than a public game. So I think it would be really unique to make custom match feel more like a custom match. Like maybe something like multiplying gens, or multiplying how many times the survivor gets hooked. Modifications like that. I also think in customs, it should be an option to let you try out the killer before you buy them, so you could get a hands-on experience with the killer you're gonna buy, or you're interested in getting. I think that would be cool to add in custom match. Mobile Moris. Let's be real here, mobile Moris are 10 times better than the Moris we have on live version. If the devs were to input the mobile Moris into the actual game, I think that would be great. Or at least like a swap out option where you could just swap out between the mobile Mori and the regular Mori. They definitely did the mobile Moris more justice than the actual Moris that we have in the game right now. They are 10 times more brutal. Map diversity. I don't know if it's just me, but outside maps in particular are starting to feel kind of the same. Like maybe it's the textures in some maps that they kind of give off that same vibe. Maybe maps with fresh tiles would make the maps feel less alike, because indoor maps, they're of course more immersive. I say you're more sheltered in, you're indoors. The atmosphere of course feels different in indoor maps. I don't know, maybe we should just get more indoor maps, because let's face it, at this point every map is just becoming more and more worse. Maybe something small like making outside maps that are day, night, and making maps that are at nighttime day. So for example, Cohen Farm could have the night map again, and Macmillan could have a day map, just to have more variety. But I don't know, maybe that's just me. How do you guys feel about that? Third person mode for Killer. This is just in the overall fun sense, the feeling of finally playing the killer from a different perspective rather than it just being the first person. Of course this is an option and not forced. What I like the most about this idea is that not only will it showcase the outfit more of the killer, but it will just feel like a different game in general. Like imagine playing Huntress or Deathslinger in third person. Do I see them ever adding this? No. But would I like to add this change for a different experience in DVD? Most definitely. Survivors see each other's perks. This is a change I feel should have came into the game a long time ago, especially for solo queue players. I think survivors need to see each other's perks in order to cooperate better. They can really work more efficiently and waste less time. Like for example, if someone has Deliverance and they get hooked, the fellow solo queue survivor is not going to know that they have Deliverance, waste all that time running across the map to try and pick them up. Meanwhile, they have Deliverance and they can already get themselves off the hook. So when you're in the menu and about to ready up, I think you should see each other's perks. Not even only in the menu, but when you pause the game, you could just see what the survivors brought. Voice prompts. This one may be a bit weird because you would hear the original characters talking. It's different for licensed characters because we obviously heard their voices, but I can only imagine Claudette or Dwight or Meg speaking. So I see it as you pressing a button, a hub will pop up, and then you can select which voice prompt you want to select. It could be something like I'm on my way, or the killer is chasing me, help me, or maybe even voice interactions between the survivors if they're close to one another. I just feel that will make the game feel much more alive instead of the survivors being completely mute, but I doubt that will ever happen. Disable map offerings. There has been countless times where survivors have sent me to Coldwind Farm, along with bringing builds that will just destroy gens in a matter of seconds. Don't get me wrong, the killer can bring something scary or annoying as well. Maybe something like Myers bringing Larry's with Scratch Mirror, but I just think it's a better idea for map offerings to go. They could be heavily abused, and it's just annoying to visit the same map over and over again, or a map that just favors one side. It's like, yeah, most of the maps are bad anyway, but I'd rather have a map be chosen at random rather than survivors knowing already which map they're going to, kind of gaining upper hand, vice versa. There's times where players can bring a map offering and then they could lose too, or some who maybe just like a certain map and want to visit that certain map, but majority of the time it is just abused just to gain upper hand. Functional doors. So what if the breakable doors were actually functional, where the survivors could open and close it, as well as the killers? It will work just like Friday the 13th, where you could open and close the door and lock it as well. If the survivor was to lock it, the killer would then break the door, like how they break the door in the game. I think it would be a cool mechanic rather than a breakable wooden door just being there kind of awkwardly. I wonder if that's something that the devs kind of thought about and was just like, nah, we would just add breakable doors instead. First person mode for Survivor. I don't play Survivor as much as I play Killer, but I will play Survivor 10 times more if it was a first person mode. It will make the feel of the game feel more intense, creepy, and Dead by Daylight will actually feel like a horror game. I feel the scary thing about first person for Survivor is that you can't really see your surroundings. In third person, you could cover somewhere and see the opposite side, but in first person, where you look is where you're focused on, so you can't see your surroundings because as well as your eyes, it's tunnel vision. Like, you know how horrifying it will be to play against Dredge in first person mode? That will literally be an experience in itself. I would love to see it. Game modes. Obviously something rather than the norm, just to spice the game up, will be really good. Like, don't get me wrong, getting a new chapter every now and then is always great because it's new content, but something like Prop Hunt 2v8 will really do some justice for the game. Don't get me wrong, I don't think this game is dying anytime soon, but I think new game modes will add more flexibility to the game. It'll just be much more to do rather than just you doing the norm. Like, I know survivors don't want to be doing gens all day. That could get kind of boring. Playing Killer is different because you're always active, you're always doing something, but new game modes just to switch up the pace will really do the game some justice. Better map randomization. As I mentioned with the map offerings, visiting the same map can get kind of boring. There's been times where I'll play on the map, play on a different map next game, then play on that same map I played on the first game, and it's like you got all these other maps, yet you're visiting the same map even without the offerings. I think something where if you was to play on a certain map, it will lower the chance of getting that map next time greatly. So let's say I just played on Sanctum of Wrath, right? It lowers the chance of me getting that the next game or 3 games afterwards. So as I play my games, I'm exploring different maps rather than just visiting the same map every 2 games or so. Like, I visually love Silent Hill and I barely get Silent Hill. I mean, in this gameplay I finally did, but you get the idea. If I play like 10 games, I should at least visit 7 different maps within those 10 games. Custom lobby background. How cool would it be if you could select your own background from a certain chapter? Mr. Halloween event background, you could put that as a background along with the music. I feel like this would be a top tier layer in customization. It's not something that needs to be added, but something that I love that it will be added. It will also give off a nostalgic feeling. Trapper change. Trapper, in my opinion, is a really weak killer. I feel it's mainly because Trapper has to go around collecting his traps, and if a survivor does get trapped on his trap, he has to go all the way across the map to hit that survivor, hoping that survivor doesn't escape the trap in time. I think if a survivor gets trapped on a trap, Trapper should get the haste status effect. That way, if a survivor gets trapped, he has more of a chance of actually catching up to the survivor to hit them in time. As for him having to go around and collect his traps, I actually thought that it wouldn't be a bad idea for him to actually have to reload his traps from the locker. So if he ever runs out of traps, he will reload his traps in the locker, kind of like Huntress, and have all those traps already in his arsenal. However, I can only imagine if Trapper has someone in the basement and he just keeps reloading his traps, that would be a nightmare. But I think the haste status effect is at least good enough if I had to add one change. Nurse change. Now, Nurse is obviously our strongest killer in the game. The reason for that is because she completely negates windows and pallets, which survivors need in order to slow the killer down. If there was some way to make it where Nurse actually has to vault a window or break a pallet, I think that would be the most controversial change ever. Don't get me wrong, it's cool to have a killer to resort to that's very top tier, but Nurse just negates the fundamentals of the game. She basically doesn't even play the game. She ignores it. And it's not even like Nurse is really hard to play. She's really not hard at all to play, or at least not that hard for me. I understand for a new player, but for experienced players, I don't think Nurse should be too hard. At least not harder than no Blight, Hillbilly, or Singularity, in my opinion. Generator task. So basically, what if skill checks weren't a thing and generators were actually a task? Like, you know how in Among Us, I think it's the electrical task where you have to bind the electrical cords together with the color, the corresponding color, something like that. But imagine you just having to do that over and over and over again. Or they could just be different generator tasks if you complete the next, maybe like a max of 3 for each survivor. But of course, the generator task wouldn't be in your face. Like, it wouldn't fill the whole screen, because if it's a stealth killer, you obviously have to look around to see if that stealth killer is coming. But I think that would make generators more immersive since you're actually doing something rather than just clicking one button. How do you guys feel about that one? Survivor emotes. Yeah, we have a few gestures in the game. I guess you could count teabagging as one of them, but I don't think it would be such a bad idea to add emotes to the game, especially if they get a bit ridiculous with it, like having the survivors do backflips and shit. I love that though. I can see the community being 50-50 on it because some might think it's toxic, but it's a game. We all here have a fun time. Don't don't take it too personal. The emote is the emote. Crouch speed base kit. So as you know, our stealth killers are not the strongest killers in the game. Pig and Ghostface in particular, considering they're the only ones that crouch. So I don't think it'll be such a bad idea just to make their crouch speed add-ons base kit. They already can use the help, so I say why not? It'll be very useful. Instead of them having to bring those crouch speed add-ons, they could just bring 2 more different add-ons and actually navigate the map without having to stand up. Of course, the crouching speed wouldn't be the same as the walking speed, but I feel like they should have to rely on that more in order to get around more undetectable. Intense dismemberments in Moris. I feel like some of the Moris in this game should look more gruesome than they already look, because when you look at some of them, it's like, yeah, when you think about it, it's gruesome, but actually seeing it is not gruesome. I think Pyramid Head's Mori is the best example of that, considering their guts would just spill out on the ground, probably even split them in half. But intense dismemberments like cutting off the leg, the arm, cutting the survivor in half, cutting off the head, something like that would be great for DBD. It will give off a much more darker tone. It's like, yeah, cutting off someone's tongue or finger is creepy and dark, but I feel like it could be way more edgy than that. I see far more gruesome games that we have today, and it just flew past my mind that DBD is not as gory as it seems. Because for a game like this, you would expect it to be very gory. Maybe Behavior just don't want to land the AO rating. Keyboards can work on consoles. I know it could be a pain playing DBD on console, especially when you're playing killer. Analog sticks, sometimes they just don't cut it at all. I don't think this would be the easiest thing to do, but if there was some way that DBD was keyboard and mouse supported on consoles, I think that would be great for console players. They will have more of a chance in crossplay against PC players who have 10 times better navigation. It's just way easier to move on mouse and keyboard. I feel for people who own consoles should at least have the fair capability of being able to use keyboard and mouse. Like, I remember playing the Badele on console because that's when I first played it, was on console, and now PC is my primary system where I play DVD on. But when Blight came out, I was like, yeah, hell no, dude, I'm not playing Blight on console. These analog sticks is killing me. So imagine that ruining someone's whole experience just because they're playing on console and they can't use a keyboard and mouse. I think that will really do console some justice. What are some changes and additions you would make to DBD if you had the power to do so? Let me know down below. Love y'all. Take care. I'm gonna see you on the next one. And peace.